Hey guys, today we're talking to Lyndal Harris, the creative director of September Design Studio, and particularly on a topic really close to my heart, having the courage to leave a big agency and going and starting your own business and what that means. Guys, welcome to Dismantle. So I'm here with Lyndal Harris, who is the founder and creative director of September Design Studio. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, September, among the many acclaimed jobs and clients that they've worked with, some of the biggest in the industry, I'd like to think that one of your favorites has been Skyline Creative.
Absolutely.
The rebrand project for our own agency.
Absolutely.
I'll start off with I want you to be very honest here, Linda, but how was I as a client?
You had a really tight brief of what you were after, and you came to the table with visual material, which is pretty rare.
Okay. When you say tight, is that a negative or a positive? Would you have rather more freedom?
I thought it was great. I think, it kind of showed that you had something specific in mind, but then that within that theme, there was a lot to play with. So, and I think what we took out of what you put in front of us, it was just a great source of inspiration. So but it was nice because you were kind of quite far down the visual path, whereas, a lot of clients will come with a strategy or, language that they have around that brief, but they don't come to the table with like mood boards and things. And then throughout the process, incredibly easygoing because it was I felt like it flowed really easily.
What's sort of like the best way for a client to approach you guys?
Oh, look, it comes in so many forms and various stages. Sometimes clients come to you and they just want a website, and you end up kind of developing a whole new brand refresh for them. Sometimes they'll come, with a blank canvas where you have to do strategy from the ground up. We work with people on strategy, and then that will help us form a design brief, and then we'll take it from there. But it's just so different. I mean, we work with in-house teams, we work direct with clients. So, with an in-house team, you're kind of already working with a team that have a background in design. They might be art directors, they might be marketing people. And we work with a lot of established brands. So sometimes it's just picking up on whatever that is and running with it. And, from a fashion perspective, the best part of that is you get to evolve it season after season. So what you start with, you just continually build on. And what the client wanted in the beginning, you can kind of slowly kind of stretch that out. And over time...
Being in that fashion, was that a purposeful thing that you wanted to stay in that space?
Yeah, I've always had a huge love for that, kind of learning my trade through business that was really built around that. When I worked at Eskimo, that was kind of at the core of their business, and the lifestyle aspect flowed from that. I just always loved that, and it was quite great because at design school, we had to choose a discipline. Like there was the Bachelor of Design, but it was you could choose Viscom or fashion, and I was always really frustrated by that because I thought I don't really want to choose. I love all of those things. So in a way, I get to do two disciplines at once, which I love. Was
that a reason for you to leave Eskimo? Like what gave you that thought to go, I'm going to leave an agency and then start my own one up? Because it was a pretty giant leap, right?
Yeah.
And I know it didn't happen like the next day.
Yeah.
There was kind of, the freelance aspect of before that, but like even that takes courage in itself, right?
Yeah, that was like jumping off a cliff for sure, which I think is the same feeling when you start a business.
Did anything spur it?
I was there for 9 years. That's a long time. It was a few things, but I was incredibly stressed and probably burnt out, if I'm honest. And I've actually never said that before.
That's okay. We all get burnt out.
I didn't know that at the time. I could just keep going. I mean, that's the thing. If you're passionate about something, you don't recognize it because you're just busy doing what you love, and you just, it becomes everything. So
what were the effects? What makes you say you were burnt out?
I don't know if it was burnout, but I was incredibly stressed. I mean, I think what what I do, even when I'm working for somebody else, is I kind of adopt the responsibilities of that business like it's my own, which is probably good training. But
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that's helped in putting the client's needs as part of your own, right?
Yeah.
When you're working with them.
Yeah, I think through freelance, I learned to love everything again in a way
Wow.
that was fresh,
Yeah.
and new. It was almost like starting back, again, straight out of uni. That instant thing where like every job that comes in, you're like, oh my god, I want to work on that, and that's how I started to feel again freelancing, and I was in this really privileged position where I could bounce from a couple of different agencies that had incredible work going on, and I kind of became known as the fashion kid. So I would get pulled in to do certain projects that had that kind of lens on it, and so I just found myself getting pulled in on really great jobs and
Amazing.
getting to do the really pointy stuff. And
I imagine that a lot of that was, of course, the quality of work you were producing. How much of it was also relationships that you'd built up in those 9 years and that kind of community aspect of things?
I think relationships are everything. I'm sure that's true in every business, but I think in the creative industry, it's huge because, I mean, you can't exist in a silo. You're constantly working and bouncing off other people.
Yeah.
And just maintaining all of those relationships and really, and the nice thing about that is if you get to a point where you end up being attracted to people, or people are attracted to you that are just really wanting to do great work, and then if you can just like be in that very fortunate position where there's this kind of, you're all drawn together by the same goal, and that's to create awesome things. And so there's I kind of think the quality of work is reflective of the quality of relationships, and
the ideas and the different stuff that's coming at you, right?
Yeah.
Your network's very much a reflection of how you treat people as a whole. If you show them respect, and you kind of, it's that really kind of, it's a contradiction, but you don't want to approach your relationship building with the intent of, what are these people going to do for me down the track, right? But then there are, like you said, times when you have to be a bit self-aware of what your own strengths and weaknesses are, and then find somebody with another skill set that's going to complement yours, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, I mean, back to your point about respect, and that I feel like that's just, and even in my business, it's a very conscious thing that it's just being generous, being transparent, and just being kind to people in general. I just think that's just a great way to live, really. But in a design business, I think that has been a set of values, I guess, that we live by.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think that helps kind of win business as well? I mean, what you guys do is fairly, I'm going to say, subjective.
Yeah.
That a lot of the time, I imagine clients would be almost buying you as a person as much as the work sometimes. Do you feel that ever happens?
I don't know.
Come on. You can say yes. People will buy me because I'm awesome. My work's crap.
I think they're buying a logo.
Really?
Or a website.
Wow.
No,
I totally don't think that's true.
Look, I think if you can have positive interactions and have fun along the way, that's just gold. And I think...
But there's an empathy, right? Like they have to know that you understand them, that you've heard what they say. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, we've got this wonderful account director that's working with us at the moment, and she did make an observation when she started working with us. She started like 6 months ago, and she said, she sat in on a briefing with me, and or a new business meeting, and she was like, you guys really listen to your clients. You're really listening. And I was like, well, yeah. But, I think maybe that gets lost in other places, or I don't know. I mean, I just would have thought that was only key. I mean, I think working in fashion and lifestyle, you have to be empathetic because you're creating emotional things, you're creating emotive experiences or objects or whatever that you want people to respond to. So you have to be sensitive to the brief, sensitive to all those nuances that you can push and pull to make something, have an effect on somebody. And
so funny, like I've almost never heard empathy and caring in the same sentence of that industry. Like it seems from external, like it's egotistical and vain, right? Like,
right. Wow.
You think you need to kind of cater to someone else's stylistic choices, but
I mean, maybe as an industry, I guess it wouldn't have the best reputation for being, I guess it does seem superficial on the outside, but I guess that's the way we approach it.
Yeah, of course.
And we've worked with lots of projects outside of those categories that have really enjoyed that approach. We like that lens that we put on those projects, we also put on other categories. And I think actually that's where the really exciting stuff happens because, we've worked in construction, we've worked in like a medical business. I think all of it still applies. It's very translatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that's built on your core values as a business? Was that something you really consciously put together when you started?
I did have this little quote that I left on my computer. It was kind of my screensaver for a while. It was, no humans have been hurt in the process of making this design, which is kind of like maybe something that I'd learnt along the way that, there's in the search of perfection and creating this incredibly beautiful thing, you can torture people along the way. The designers, it can be kind of strangled a bit, because you're like trying to make this perfect thing. And along the way, there's collateral damage, I guess, because people will they get burnt out, or there's, somebody's been stretched, or I don't think it's about perfection. I think working for other people, you're trying to get that because you want that for them. Yeah. But for me now, it's quite liberating to relax and go, actually, this doesn't have to be perfect, but it does. But my version of perfect is, a lot further down the road than somebody else's,
of course.
And there's also a point in a project where you're not going to go another 20 round of changes to make this brochure incredible, because everybody in the process is going to hate it.
Yeah.
So there's a point where you stop and go, we're done.
I love it.
Yeah.
I need to work on that myself.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Even
hard.
recently there's a project, it's that balance of trying to make the client happy, but so where you kind of approached us for a certain style and aesthetic, and then it's the process sometimes can hurt.
Yeah.
It's interesting where you have to draw that line.
Yeah.
And I think that's an experience thing, right?
Because, budgets, and then people are kind of starting to work for free because you're pushing something so hard, and it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way.
Do you teach your kind of young designers that come in how to deal with criticism? It's such a personal thing in the design process. Then kind of once it leaves, it's almost, you kind of have to take that emotion away, right? For your own mental health?
I think that's everybody's journey, everybody's own. Like as a designer, if you choose a creative field, that's kind of your journey to take, and there'll be a point where you'll. I think that's just something I've never consciously taught how to deal with that. I mean, I think being able to self-critique is amazing, but obviously to a point, so that doesn't, hinder your creativity.
Do you still take design critique personally if a client says something?
Always, yeah.
You do?
I've actually, if you didn't, you wouldn't care. You don't care enough. One of my ECD's desks, when I was freelancing, that said, "I'm only stressed because I give a shit," And I was like, "It's really true."
How important would you say confidence is to any sort of creative?
As a creative person, that I think that's a constant struggle, because you are putting yourself out there every time, and you either have the confidence to do that, or and sometimes your confidence can get knocked around. yeah, I think, and then starting your own business, it's like, I think I spent the first 6 months on the lead up to kind of looking for business partners. And, you know, I had a couple of different people approach me and say, we think you should start a business, we'll help you, and, you know, we'll be partners or whatever. And actually in the end, I went it alone. And, but it's funny how I needed the little push. I always thought I would have my own business, but that little push from those external sources kind of gave me the bump forward. And then as the different partners kind of fell away, or those options, you know, I kind of went, oh, you know, maybe I don't need that. And I mean, gosh, I think it would be smart to have a business partner, because then you could take holidays. And I've seen other partnerships, and I guess in a way, you know, when you grow up in a business like Eskimo that has two great directors, and you see how they bounce off each other and they have complementary skills, you think that's great. And I think maybe that's what I was looking for. But then you kind of just go, no, like, this is okay. And I guess, but every time something happens and you get a bump in the road, you're like, well, what am I doing? Do I keep doing this? Is, you know, what's it all about? What am I doing it for?
I think there's definitely pros and cons with the partnership thing.
Yeah.
It's so funny how, like, recently the past year, in fact, I went through that thing. And when I started the business, I was very fortunate that I had like a week to decide if we were going to start it or not. Like,
wow.
Company I was with came crashing down horribly. It was one of those, you get an email saying you don't have a job anymore day. It was a Thursday, I remember it. And then I had a whole client base of relationships that were like, okay, these guys still need to get serviced. And it's pretty much, if I wanted to do something myself, we had a week to do it. And I think that was probably the best thing, because it was out of my head. I had to make a yes or no decision straight away. And I kind of feel for the people that, like you said, spend months going, asking different questions, and then you might, maybe it's worse or better for you. But like, I see people sit on, what's the name of their business? What's the logo, for like 6 months, when really that stuff doesn't really matter too much. When you're starting, you have to go and do it, right?
Yeah.
So I found the first 2 years, 3 years, I got incredibly lonely. Like, I think that was the times when I would say, I wish I had a partner here to push me through this stuff.
Yeah.
No one really, I didn't feel like anybody understood me or who I was or what I was going through, and the pressure, and, you know, owning your business, you're always in your head about it. Like, it's really hard to switch off. Did you kind of find a similar thing?
Gosh, you know what? I didn't feel lonely. Like, when I went out and started freelancing, I thought, this is going to be, you know, I'm going to be isolated. I'm going to be out there on my own. But I've never felt so supported in my life. Just this lovely cushion of people that were just all cheering for you. And they're getting you in. They're going, oh, we love your work. And you're like, really? Like, oh, that's cool. I had like 3 different mentors.
Okay. Yeah,
One was my dad, because he had his own business for 25 years, and he doesn't know my industry very well, but I think the principles are there. That's, you know, writing an invoice, you know, that kind of stuff. He was like, get a docket book, you know, those old-fashioned ones that have the BEC, which is a government-funded small business division that you get a certain amount of mentoring things for free, and then after that you pay, but it's very, very, you know, very reasonable. And so I check in with her a lot. And then I also started with an awesome designer that just was, we were kind of guessing together in a lot of ways. Something would come in, we go, what do we do with this, you know? And so thankfully I always had great people around me too.
That's awesome. I think it's so important. And, you know, for me, I think I've seen a massive change. It was probably about a year ago. I went, like, the people around me, my friend group, they weren't on the same level, or even like, I wasn't aspirationally looking at anybody. And I kind of made a conscious decision to find small people and join some groups. And luckily I found a couple of mentors myself that helped me out. But yeah, I love how you kind of separate them too. So yeah, one might have had that business experience and one might have had that relationship kind of even sales experience and things like that. And I think it's important to have that guide along the way.
I think so. But I also have a terrible habit of asking for lots of opinions and then confusing the hell out of myself.
I see. At what point do you go, I don't give a shit about any of that and follow my gut?
I think following your gut is really all you can do. Even like with my accountant, I ask him questions like, and he's just like, oh, whatever you feel. And I'm like, what?
Okay, I think you need to get a new accountant.
No, that's not what he said. But, it was like, I was shocked to know it wasn't a black and white answer.
Yeah.
There was all this grey, and you just have to navigate that, make the best decision that you can at any time. Having your own business, starting your own business is awesome, despite all the scary stuff that goes with it, and shaking off the fear of starting, just go. I think that was, if you could do all the planning and be really cautious and gather all the information, and half the time none of that stuff will line up because it's a little bit crazy. So
is that what you were scared of before starting? Like what were the big fears?
Just being overwhelmed with the unknown, I guess. What it seems insurmountable and this huge undertaking, but actually when you just get started and you're just taking steps day by day, it's actually not that hard. But I think the fear of that would stop a lot of people from taking it past the first step.
Was that could there have been somewhat of a dichotomy of that support? Is that you had a lot of people kind of back in and helping you, that you didn't want to let them down as well?
I'm my own biggest critic, so
that's great.
It's more about, I am a bit, I guess when you're striving to do great work for a client, it's because you don't want to let them down and you want to do the best possible job. But I think I'm probably harder on myself than they would be on the work.
Learning those skills around a business, there's a lot of trial and error.
Yes.
It's also finding mentors and people who have done it before to help your time collapse. And I think really paying attention to those relationships that you have that will help both support you, and then I kind of find collaborations and different ideas to help you grow.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We're trying to evolve a community here to share ideas and experiences to help each other learn, grow, and support each other as one. To help this movement, you can do two things right now. Send this to someone who you think needs to hear it, write us a review, and share it across your socials. And secondly, most importantly, go out there right now and be the best version of yourself that you can be. Be the change you want to see in the industry. You have the power to succeed and lift people up with your art, your words, and your soul. It will take hard work, but be that warrior badass that the world needs more of. Go out there and chase your true potential.